Hello everybody. Welcome back to the channel where we talk about stuff. Don't forget to leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe. They are free and easy ways to support the channel. We're gonna have a grown-up, like a big boy talk right now, because I think and I hope that people need to hear this, and that is going to push you in the right direction just because of absolute logic. So this is going to be and I said like a bit of a different video, but you'll get the gist of it very, very quick. One of the main things that I've understood from having lived and also having invested is that usually the early bird gets the worm. In terms of investments, this is also incredibly true in a multitude of different ways. We are currently experiencing the shift in life, the world. I don't know what else to really put there. And it's also historical in a number of ways. I've learned that in my life, my entire life, I've always been, the word is not, I don't even know what to really put there. The word's not opinionated. I've learned that when I was younger, I was a bit of a class clown. I'm sure you see me acting weird and stuff sometimes in videos. Like it's just there. Every time when I was younger, if I told people anything, I was kind of never really believed because the perception was always that, well, he's the guy who's always making jokes. Of course, he's just making another joke. Even when I was being like dead serious, trying to get something across to people. When I was younger, I think it annoyed me that like people always thought I was joking. But then as I got older, it kind of became like a hyper frustration. That's something that I still deal with. Even in like my friend groups now, and I'm kind of basically the same person more or less. I like making jokes, I like making people laugh or feel good, whatever the case might actually be. But when it comes down to things like money, and I'll say to a smaller extent like science, when people don't hear me or don't believe me or discount me or toss me to the side or think that I'm not telling them what's actually going on, this is that. Like, it's like actual anger that develops. If you have been here for a number of years, this translates into very, very well into the cryptocurrency space. When I told you years ago to start paying attention to the coins that are constantly in the news, what's getting paid attention to, where's the institutional money going, the first year kind of faltered. Because everyone saw everything else was much shinier in the room and everyone else began to run to these things. And therefore, the idea of Bitcoin, in many cases Ethereum, in many cases XRP, were not really a thing because everyone was focusing on the brand new coins that kept on popping up. So I said, okay, cool. Next cycle, we got this. I tried helping people again. And I, congratulations to those who actually listened. But there was another issue, once again, the next cycle, where things kept on falling apart or breaking, or I tried to tell people easily, look at this thing. It's clearly not working. This isn't where you should be putting your money. As I will not ever tell you where to put your money or what to do with it. I'm like, pay attention to the news. And I always say, if I say something that sounds weird or off or unbelievable, the reason why I say that is because my entire life I've always been discounted. I've always been pushed to the side. When I tell people things, no one really seems to listen. And I don't know if this is a universal thing or if it's just simply a me thing. I had a problem. This was 3-4 years ago. And I almost couldn't believe it. It has to do something with education, but it also has to do something with life. I was telling people, random side story, I was telling a group of people, it was a very warm day in January. And I was like, it's really weird how like the earth is actually closer to the sun in winter than it is in the summer. Like because of it's not even like a circular rotation. It's like we kind of get slingshotted around the sun in this way. And they were like, no, it's not. And I was like, what? No, it's not. And they were like, we're definitely farther away from the sun in the summertime. And I was like, no, in wintertime. And I was like, no, we're closer in winter and we're farther away in summer. And then I also had to explain like the earth was like on its axis and that the earth also isn't a perfect sphere. It bulges at the ends. And this is why these, there's so many things that go into it. And it was about 6 people and none of them believed me. Like I said, that's also an educational thing, but something's not quite there. Having been in this space, in the cryptocurrency space, in world markets, in real estate, in art for a while, I've noticed the same exact thing nearly completely in like perfect sync with what I was just telling you. I've told people for years. I got into art, buying art around 2016. I did literal research. I checked around. I found like the biggest name living artists. Buying from people who've passed does nothing. I don't care. I want something from famous living artists. Big name artists, not necessarily for profit, but profit, of course, is also a gigantic portion of it. A number of years later, I had a lot of people who wanted to also like get into the art market. And I mentioned that I was in the art market. And it was this like heavy level of skepticism. Oh, you also like, what kind of art do you buy? And I told them and they were like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. Well, I'm going to buy this artist and that artist. And I was like, cool, go on your own journey. And then eventually when they saw that the stuff that I told them that I was buying or who I was buying from was doing very well, then it kind of clicked and they were like, oh, maybe he actually does know. I've noticed that people need to kind of trip over themselves. If I'm rambling, I'm sorry, not sorry. It's just more of I think I need to like say all these things because I feel like, no, I know that the world is changing. And when people hear me speak, I don't know if it's because I don't seem serious enough. I don't have a serious background enough. I'm not dressed in a shirt and a tie. I don't know exactly what does it to the human mind as to why I'm not convincing enough for people on their journey of any sort, even down to real estate. I used to, like cheap, like really super inexpensive places. Studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. And I used to kind of tell other friends like, hey, look at that place, because I didn't want to gobble it up for myself. Always met with skepticism. 10 years down the line, they're like, man, you are lucky. And I'm like, I'm not lucky. I looked at the numbers. There was no tenant in there. I saw what the rent was before. I saw what the rent can be now. I saw what the rent was around the other areas. I went to go look at it. It didn't have any damages. It had no problems. It maybe needed like the wood floor needed to be sanded down. A new paint job, a new kitchen. Doesn't cost a lot from IKEA. You're kind of good to go. Yeah, you are. You saw it. And I'm like, I didn't see it. It's just like it's kind of on the topic of crypto. This has been a really weird like time in life for me in multiple different ways. The last 4 years have been absolutely bat poop insane in a multitude of ways. And even further back, just my entire cryptocurrency journey. In the very beginning, if you were watching the other channel, there were so many new coins that were popping up all the time. I remember I had videos where I was talking about Bitcoin Gold and I was talking about Bitcoin Cash. Like all these different things kept on popping up. But by the time about a year or two actually passed by, you kind of can discern what's garbage and what's not, what actually has staying power and where the money is actually going. Part of the frustration and annoyance, a large chunk of it that I have and have had, is the constant reassurance within the market and just in life that Bitcoin is going to make it. That's been one of the... When you hear about Bitcoin in the news every day, when you hear that institutions are buying Bitcoin, for those of you who missed some of the other videos, the universities and schools who are buying it, the countries who are mining Bitcoin, who are using Bitcoin for trade. Entire industries are being built around this $1 trillion coin asset class. So when new coins pop up, you've seen me before calling other coins garbage. It's not. I've seen the comments and people are like, "Why are you so jealous for?" And it's like, you don't realize that you're buying into a scam. These other coins that keep popping up that tell you to do this, and I'm DeFi and I'm so and so, and then they have rug pulls. You lose your money, but nothing tells you in your head. I mean, I'm not expecting standing ovation. I'm not expecting to be, oh my gosh, he was right. But just a little bit of like, maybe I should pay a little bit more attention to the crap that he says every single day, because it keeps adding up. I'm going to tell you the entire point of all of this, because this news popped up and I'm actually really happy that it did, because I'm hoping that someone, one of you, if only just one person, that it makes like a literal difference in the next 10 to 15 years of your life. The amount of Bitcoin on exchanges continues to dwindle. Bitcoin's price, depending on when you look at it, continues to go up. The expectations at the time of me making this video are a $100,000 Bitcoin, $150,000 Bitcoin by the end of this year, $250, $300, $400 something thousand Bitcoin over the course of 2025. There's big money to be made in this market, but it looks like there might be even bigger money in the actual longevity of actually buying Bitcoin and simply holding on to it. This summer, well, historically, we've seen that the only people who tend to sell their crypto have mainly been retail investors. There are a lot of other points in history where we see that people, let's be honest here, where some people have had $88 million worth of Bitcoin in their wallet and they sold like 12 million. People are like, why would they sell the Bitcoin? And it's like, because I want $12 million. That's usually, at least my mindset. If I had 88 million of anything and I was like, I kind of want to buy a home in the Bahamas, a portion of that asset would definitely be leaving my wallet. But the main shebang has mainly been from everyday normal people. And I can only assume that the vast majority of you are also everyday normal people. I know I'm sure there's some bougie people out there, pinky in the air, got it. But for everyone else who's been following the other channels, I've been on this like seemingly never-ending crusade to try to get you to really understand what Bitcoin is, what this asset class is, and the track that it's currently on. I don't know if you know, there's only two options for Bitcoin. People think that Bitcoin is this really complicated thing. Bitcoin is either going to $0 a coin or it's going to $100 million per coin. There's no in between. We are either going to see and experience a world and life where everyone collectively says, no, we don't want Bitcoin. We want the old monetary system. Bitcoin is too scary. We don't want to touch it. We don't care for it. We don't care for decentralization. We're fine with banks owning our money and controlling everything, and rich people have been right the entire time. Or, as we keep seeing, remember in summertime when we had the news, on most days we'll see like around like 30, 40, 50,000 new Bitcoin wallet addresses. We had one day that had 330,000. That hasn't slowed down. Like, these numbers are constant. They're every single day. It's tens of thousands of people getting into the market constantly. I didn't have the news on here, but we had another news story where someone went through the numbers and they guesstimated that based off of wallet activity and new people getting into the market, that they guesstimated that they think that there are over 500 million people on the planet who are into crypto or own some sort of crypto in some sort of fashion. They said 500 million people. We're still not at the billion-dollar actual number. The issue is that, as I've said before, and you may have a different idea on money, you may have a different idea because of capitalism, you may have a different mindset as to where you think money should go. I believe that money belongs in the hands of the people. Fair enough, right? When we keep hearing that all these companies are buying up all the Bitcoin, it frustrates me. because Bitcoin is not for the companies, it's for you. When we hear that one company has 250,000 Bitcoin, another one has 400,000 Bitcoin. When we hear that all these corporations have figured it out, they understand exactly what Bitcoin is and how rich it's going to make them. This is why if you've been missing it, every time that, if you look at MicroStrategy stock, at least at the time of me making this video, the stock is always going up because the shareholders have realized every time that they buy Bitcoin, Bitcoin's price tends to rise higher. The valuation of the company goes up. The stock price ends up going up. When I say that it's only rich people paying attention, it's because it's mainly rich people paying attention. If you remember over the course of this year, I said at least in 16 different videos, either at the beginning, the middle, or the end, I said, if you have stuff in your house that you don't need, sell it. If you have stuff that, has been sitting around for a while, get rid of it. If you have tons of shoes that you don't wear, if you have multiple cars and you're single and you only need one car, get rid of the excess and begin to invest in it. The people who are going to flourish the most are the people with the actual assets. And in this case, the people who are holding Bitcoin are probably going to be, and I say this in the least cringy way possible, are probably going to be like the new, I don't want to use the term rulers. Rulers is a really loaded word. The people who will have generational wealth and no one for the next 1,000 generations in their families will ever have to work again. Did that sound better? I don't know if that makes any sense. We are hearing reports of whales buying a lot of Bitcoin. And once again, keep everything I just said before this in mind. I wish we lived on a planet where the 250,000 Bitcoin owned by one company was separated and given to or had been accumulated by 22 million people. So that if Bitcoin goes up to a multi-million-dollar valuation, these people benefit as opposed to the company who already has billions of dollars. Hearing that BlackRock, this was the real turning point for me. We knew and had heard rumors back in 2017, 2018 that BlackRock was thinking of getting into Bitcoin. Upon hearing officially that they were trying to launch a Bitcoin ETF, I was like, this is it. This is the moment where we get the billion people who do a mad dash to Bitcoin before the institutions do. And you know what happened? Nothing. What ended up happening was the institutions bought hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin for themselves, and everyone else stood on the sidelines, not realizing. So the mindset is, as far as I can understand it, a lot of people have some crypto, but a lot of people still wait on the sidelines. A lot of people are waiting for the prices to fall lower, or for money to magically fall into their laps. That's why I was saying, if you have a bunch of extra stuff that you don't need, that should all be sold and put into investments. I'm not telling you to put it into Bitcoin. It can even be stocks. I don't care what it is. That money that you have laying around should be making you money in some sort of way passively in the background so that you can retire early and not have to ever think about working again. A lot of people who I personally know, who I've seen, not everyone, but some people who are in the actual crypto market, the annoyance that I have is that they bought around 2 years ago. And I'll tell them all these crazy things that are happening in the market and yada, yada, and this is happening and so and so and so. And they'll go, oh, that's cool. And they don't get reinterested in the market until we hit a brand new all-time high. From $15,000 worth of Bitcoin to $73,000, there's no interest. Zero interest at all until it breaks the previous all-time high. And they go, oh my gosh, I should have been buying. And my blood boils because these people aren't rich or well off or, whatever. And I'm like, you have the chance to actually grow. It's not even, what's the word? It's like forever lasting wealth. The issue, my friend, is that the people who are going to benefit from this the most are the people who've been constantly buying. I know a lot of you have been telling me that you do like DCA, dollar cost averaging. So every week, every 2 weeks, or once a month, you throw 200 into the market, 300 into Bitcoin, like that, and so and so. And so you've been doing it for 8 years, and now you have a pretty good stash. You have set yourself and your family up for an exponential level of success. Do you know who also figured this out? The ECB. You know what the ECB is? The European Central Bank. People in crypto think that banks and institutions, first of all, we know that they're buying Bitcoin. We heard this before from the BIS. If you missed that, the Bank of International Settlements had a survey, and they were asking central banks, and 12 of them responded. And these 12 central banks said that they have billions of dollars worth of allocation into Bitcoin, as they've been buying for almost a decade. That news also did absolutely jack diddly squat to the everyday person. Normal people did not buy, but more institutions bought. People think that banks don't know what's going on, that this is like some kind of like a secretive club where like you have to like, have a certain like knock on the door, say like BTC crypto, and then you kind of let in. They have friends who are making a lot of money, who've made hundreds of millions of dollars from this market. They talk to them, they discuss this, they go over the trends. Remember a couple years ago when they always yearly had a survey asking if Bitcoin was a threat to the old system? And the answer was always no. And then one year that changed to yes. If Bitcoin continues to grow larger, the old system as we know will fade away. The idea of, if you will, debt and fiat currencies and inflation would disappear, and the people who are in charge would basically lose a huge portion of their wealth, and therefore the wealth of nations might begin to fall as Bitcoin starts to rise. Economists at the European Central Bank believe that Bitcoin's continued rise in value will drastically affect wealth distribution, but not in a good way for most people. Can anyone figure out why? I just told you all of it. If all the Bitcoin keeps getting bought by just wealthy people, what they've done over the course of this year, I think, was actually genius. And I mean like diabolically genius. These people figured out how to accumulate hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin and made sure that 80% of the market, people in the market, stopped buying or sold their coins. Remember the news that we kept on getting whenever there was like an outflow from the actual ETFs, and tons of people sold that day because the price went down by 3-4%. Those coins were absorbed the next day by the ETF and by institutions. They found a very clever way to flush out normal people from the market and make a tremendous amount of money for themselves. If Bitcoin continues to get 10, 20, 30, 40,000 people per day who get into the market, and a lot of these wallet addresses, as we've seen and we've heard before from other videos and other analytics, a lot of these wallet addresses are buying like 50 cents of Bitcoin, $1 worth of Bitcoin. Some of them buy $10 worth of Bitcoin on a crypto exchange and then kind of like forget about it. If the upper echelon continues to buy, and then they hold all the Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin goes to $17 million per coin, who benefits the most? It's the company that has 250,000 Bitcoin. And I remember the other video, this must have been springtime. We had news that, for those of you who've forgotten, that 91% of all Bitcoin is held by gigantic whales. You remember what I said in that video? I said I'm not surprised. Because since I started researching Bitcoin back in 2013, I didn't get into any markets until like the end of 2016. I was like on the sidelines looking at everything that was going on. These people have been buying constantly. There hasn't been like a point where they've stopped. Bitcoin falls down to $14. They're undeterred and they keep buying. Remember all those Reddit posts with all these people? There was one really famous one where the guy, I think Bitcoin went up to $12 and he said he sold because a couple days later it went down to $1 and he was like, I'm glad I got out of that bubble. I'm so glad I got out of it because, you know, and I was like, a large number of people, mathematically, we can also even say some of you watching this right now are going to go through a very difficult shock in the future where you realize, and it can be any asset, that you not only sold it and got rid of it, but that you no longer have it, if that makes any sense. It's kind of like a double-pronged thing. So if you have an asset and you decide to sell it, the most important thing is usually to swap it into another cash-producing asset. So if you have crypto and you sell it, if you have gold and you sell it, buy real estate, buy land, something you can rent out that continues making you money and also continues rising in value. A lot of people in crypto, before in the past, the market has dipped, they sell it and they leave the market and then they rush back into the market when prices have gotten so high that they can only have a fraction of what they've had before. Prices dip again, they sell even more. There's someone who I know, as far as I know, he had, I think, a quarter of a Bitcoin. And I asked him recently, he told me he has almost none because he said when the price went up, he had to pay his rent. He had to do this. He had to do so and so. When the price wasn't moving, he got annoyed. So he booked a trip to Miami. He booked a trip here. He booked a trip to so and so. And now he has nothing left. So as he sees that the market is like recovering, has recovered, is going up, it's potentially going to 100K, I can tell like the anger and like the resentment has begun to set in, but it's not the level of like anger that I'm talking about. This won't hit people until Bitcoin, I think, hits around $500,000 to $1 million per coin. The other part is the economists at the European Central Bank, they understand that wealth is being created in this manner and wealth is being moved. And as I've said before in other videos, the misconception of the wealth transfer, I've seen it. I've seen people talking about it on Twitter. The misconception of the wealth transfer that we've been hearing about since the 1980s, like really, like if you look back at these old magazines, the idea of the wealth transfer is that other generations are going to simply pass and then sprinkle wealth onto a group of people, if you will, and or that people in certain markets will make exceptional, huge amounts of money and they'll be able to use that to grow wealth. The problem is that the people who actually are looking for the wealth transfer don't realize that in part, millions of people in this market have fragments of Bitcoin, little pieces, if you will. When the market goes down, they sell all of them. And that's the wealth transfer. You are transferring the future wealth to those who understand what's going on and to those who've already been buying Bitcoin nonstop. The really interesting part, if you will, is that this trend is going to continue because it's continued for longer than I've been on this actual planet. Think of it. How many people, mathematically, a lot of you, do you know have had a home, like a house, like you inherited a house and then people sold it? How many people do you know were invested in gold a number of years ago and then they sold it? Were invested in crypto and then they sold it. You thought of buying art, maybe even had something. You saw the price went up and you sold it. You keep relinquishing assets. A lot of people do the same exact thing for stocks and ETFs. People buy stuff. They see that the value has gone up. They get scared of the market doing something and they cash out their $1,600 and they go, I made a profit. You look at the stock prices 10 years later, you would have made $167,000 if you had just kept your money in that actual asset. In their paper titled The Distributional Consequences of Bitcoin, the economists claim that early Bitcoin adopters will be the primary beneficiaries, while latecomers and non-holders will face the brunt of the consequences. For those of you who do not know, we are still in the early adopter phase. the last bit of Bitcoin will not be mined until the year 2140. On the actual, I don't know if you've seen, like, there's like a curve chart. It's like early adopters, whatever, and, peak so-and-so, and then like there's always like stragglers at the very end. We have about another good 5 to 10 years as actual like early adopters. By the 2030s and early 2040s, it's expected that the number will have breached several billion people in the market, and these will be like the latecomers, and there still will be people when Bitcoin's at 30 million who will refuse to buy any and just simply won't have any. And those are the stragglers. Those are the people who come in late. A lot of people who get into this market, they think that they're already late. One of the most Googled things, is it too late to buy Bitcoin? Is it too late to buy Ethereum? Am I too late buying XRP? We are still in the beginning. The problem is that the rich people have figured that out. It's very rare to have any asset that's like mathematically finite. You can have Pokemon cards, you can have housing, you can have a lot of things that can also continuously be made if they want to be. You can have reprints, you can have new homes, you can have all this other stuff. You can't forcibly make more Bitcoin. People have tried with other coins, but it doesn't work. So what happens when they hold and I'll tell you what I think is actually going to happen, and I'm fairly certain. I think there'll be like a knock-on effect or a knockdown or a domino kind of effect where people will get desperate and they'll try and look for other coins, and the coins won't shine as brightly as Bitcoin. But I think this is when like other adoption for other things will happen. I think this is not what's going to happen. I'm not a psychic. What I think is going to happen is that Bitcoin is going to reach several $1 million per coin. There's no doubt in my mind, unless dinosaurs come back and grow wings and, whatever, something weird happens. And then I think the knock-on effect will be Ethereum going to 6 figures, and people who felt they didn't get into Bitcoin will rush into Ether and start buying up as much Ether as they possibly can. If we end up getting to a 7-figure Ether in 10, 15, 20, 30 years or whatever, I think the knock-on effect from there will be people rushing to get into XRP that might be $30 or $40 at that point. And I think the world is going to be like nearly crypto based, but I think the wealth that's being made with Bitcoin is going to be like the shining star in the sky that other people will look up to. It's kind of like last point. I did not mean to rant for this long. The other idea is I think it's called the Veblen effect, Veblen or IN, I don't remember. The idea is that as something becomes more expensive, the more like precious it becomes to people. So if you walked into a luxury handbag store and all the bags were $5, you'd be like, oh, it looks a little cheap. But when they're $6,000, you go, oh my gosh, like I don't have the money to buy one of these. It becomes like a more precious, beautiful thing. And I think we'll hit that when Bitcoin goes by 100K. And I think we'll see that when Bitcoin goes above 1 million, and then people will begin to like, I need to find something else because I'm too late. And then Bitcoin continues to multiply as well. I saw this and I thought it was very fascinating because it's nothing that people in crypto are actually talking about. Maybe it has to be like more hush hush and stuff like that. But the rich people have found a very clever way to accumulate a brand new asset class in near silence. Like the revolution is happening, but in the airwaves. It's happening in the sky. It's happening through cables. When Bitcoin goes to $14 million a coin, I think it's going to set in for a lot of people. I don't care if you exclusively invest in crypto, if crypto's too much for you, like mentally, it's a crazy market. But as long as you invest in something, my goal for you is to invest in something that makes you money, that gets you more money, that rises in value, that you can then swap into other assets or sell a portion of it, push into other assets. Because the way that the world is moving now, rich people own everything and they're going to continue buying up everything. And by the time we get to 2050, there's not going to be anything left for normal people. Haven't you noticed that now? Have you ever seen fractionalized real estate ownership? Like not through REITs, but like there are companies who are like, they buy homes and like they're like selling like a portion of it to you, like digitally. So like they'll say like you own 0.5% of this home. because that's the way that things are going to be in the future. Home ownership, like owning an actual like full home, like look it up. Look up like fractional real estate ownership. It's already a thing because people are like, I only have 8,000 to put into it. I can't afford something for $500,000. So they like digitally own it with a bunch of other people. And like, you get like drips and drops of like money coming from it. But the idea of owning an entire home, like debt free, that's also already like a dream. Now imagine in another 25 years when the corporations own everything. Yeah. No one else is talking about this, and I think it's incredibly important because we are going to see wealth swing in one direction, and I think it's going to be in nearly the direction of people who have assets and who have crypto, and in this case, Bitcoin. So, yeah, just something really to keep in mind because the world is not going to slow down. The world's not going to stop. Bitcoin and crypto are not going to wait for you as much as you would like them to. You got to act. And once again, it's been 8 years. So if you've been following me all this time, you should know what's going on. But everyone else, welcome aboard because things are only going to get crazier. Yeah. I do hope that you've all enjoyed, that you got something from it, that you understood what I was saying. If the European Central Bank is talking about it, they see exactly where the world is heading. Hope you all enjoyed. Hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. To hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.